I'd like to share a little bit about the teaching of Jesus about anger from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, the section of the Gospel of Matthew that we refer to always as the Sermon on the Mount. It's a combination of various teachings of Jesus that Matthew collects together in these chapters 5 through 7. Jesus, in talking about anger, is going to put it in a context. He first says about the teaching of the ancestors. So this term ancestors would refer, of course, to the prophets, the scriptures, the oral tradition that was so special and so important for his hearers and for the Jewish people. And the teaching of the ancestors was, "You shall not kill." Certainly a very important teaching, one of the foundational teachings of our society and really of any society. Because where there is killing, there is destruction, there is evil, there is loss of life. Life is precious, life is sacred. We learn this, of course, in our Hebrew scriptures from the story of Cain and Abel, the idea of life being precious and how evil it is to take a life. So Jesus says, "You shall not kill." That's the teaching of the ancestors. And if you do kill, you are liable to judgment. You see this in the book of Exodus, chapter 20, verse 13. You see it in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 5, verse 17. And again in the book of Exodus, chapter 21, verse 12. That's the section of the Hebrew scriptures referred to as the Torah, the law, the sacred teaching that Moses gets from God to give people guidance as to what is right and what is wrong. Jesus takes that teaching, and of course he reverences that teaching because it is an important teaching, a foundational teaching. But then, as we see frequently in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus is going to take this a step further. Jesus says, "But I say to you," a very important phrase, because we have the ancestors, the tradition, the Torah, the important scriptures for the Jewish people. But then we have Jesus saying, "But I say to you." Of course, the question you're going to ask as somebody who is listening to Jesus initially, and of course who's listening to Jesus today, you're going to say, "Well, but Jesus, who are you? Where do you get off saying that you are greater than the law? You are greater than the Torah. Why are you saying this to us?" It's almost like, Jesus, you're making yourself a supreme authority, an authority greater even than the word that we have been given. So this is rather a brash statement by Jesus, and one that you could easily question and say, my goodness, is this man really going above and beyond by saying, "But I say to you"? The typical way that a Jewish teacher, a rabbi in this time, would handle something like this is by quoting another authority, quoting a prophet, another great rabbi like Gamaliel, another great teacher. But in saying, "But I say to you," wow, it's like us today, a very similar experience, right? If someone is making a statement, you want to know, well, how are you backing that statement up? What is your source? What are your references? If you're doing a paper, you have to have footnotes to back you up. If you're presenting an argument in a court of law, you have to have precedents. You have to quote legal theorists. If you're making a point as an historian, as a psychologist, as a biologist, you have to have something to back you up. Jesus seems to be saying, well, I'm backing myself up. I'm the authority. So he's really being very bold here. So Jesus says, but I say to you, whoever is angry. So Jesus is taking this from killing to anger. He's introducing a whole new element in the teaching. He's taking it to a whole other level. Killing is wrong. But anger? Well, anger it's normal, isn't it? Don't we all get angry at certain things? We have these triggers that set us off. Somebody says something to belittle us or question us. Someone insults us. We get angry. Somebody does something to us that we believe is unfair. They take something from us. They say something about our reputation. It's a lie. We know it's a lie. We get angry. So Jesus says, whoever is angry, he's now really taking a much deeper question. Well, what's Jesus trying to unpack here? As always, Jesus is taking us a step deeper. He's not just talking about killing and murder. He's talking about and unpacking for us the motive for murder. Why does someone murder another person? Of course, there are psychological reasons. A person is off balance. They're seeing visions, they're hearing voices, and they murder somebody. We speak of these people as they're out of balance. They need help, they need therapy, they need medication, that type of experience. But the normal experience of anger can lead us to murder someone. You can think of many examples of this. You can think of murders that we experience all the time on the news and read about. A husband gets mad at his wife, and a gun is available or a knife, and they just lose it and they murder them. Well, why do they murder them? There is anger. So Jesus is trying to get at the roots of the murder. Insulting words might lead to anger, and then that anger might lead to murder. It might escalate. We speak of training for police officers. And one of the trainings that we say today is very important is de-escalating tension. Certain words by police officers can irritate the situation. We speak of throwing gasoline on the fire. We use that metaphor. And what does that indicate? Well, our words, instead of calming the situation, wind up making the situation so much worse. That's not a good thing. And that's what Jesus is getting at here. And Jesus quotes a word here in chapter 5. This word is one of those, what we call ipsissima verba, or the very words of Jesus, because it's an Aramaic word that has been left in the Greek scriptures. So we know this is a word that most probably Jesus used, because Jesus spoke Aramaic. So the word is Raqa. Whoever says Raqa, and that is an Aramaic word that means a blockhead or an imbecile. It's really a term of abuse. So Jesus says whoever says Raqa is liable, not someone who commits a murder is someone who uses the type of language that demeans another person. What is Jesus doing here? He's trying to get us to reflect on the words that we use, the actions that we can take that can lead us to murder.